Tommy Blackwell's world collapsed in the space between two heartbeats. The phone pressed against her ear delivered a death sentence in 3 languages she barely understood. But the number was universal. $15,000, 24 hours, blood payment. The terminal lights of Incheon International Airport blurred into halos as panic seized her chest. She stumbled backward, turning too fast, her vision swimming with terror, and crashed into something immovable. Strong hands caught her waist before she fell. She looked up into eyes darker than any nightmare, belonging to a man whose tailored suit cost more than her annual salary. Her palm was already arcing upward, a reflexive, wild gesture born of fear when it connected with his face. The sound echoed through Gate 47 like a gunshot. The terminal gasped. His empire of bodyguards moved. And Sung-hoon Ryu, the man whose name didn't appear in databases but every shadow feared, smiled. Before we dive deeper into Tommy and Sung-hoon's story, hit subscribe if you believe in love that crosses borders, breaks rules, and refuses to apologize. Comment where you're from. I want to know how far this story reaches. Now, let's rewind to where this collision course actually began. Tammy Blackwell's fingers trembled as she balanced her employer's Louis Vuitton luggage tag and her dying phone. The screen cracked from too many drops she couldn't afford to fix. Incheon International Airport sparkled around her like a diamond she'd never touch, all glass and steel, and people who belonged in spaces this expensive. She wasn't supposed to fly today. She was here to check in luggage for Madame Chen, the fashion executive who'd rather send her cleaning woman than risk paparazzi at departures. Invisible labor for visible lives. The story of Tammy's existence. Then the call came. Miss Blackwell. The accent was thick, Eastern European maybe, the kind that made English sound like a threat. Your cousin's debt is now your debt. $15,000. You have 24 hours, or we collect in blood. The line went dead. Her breath went with it. $15,000. The number was absurd. Impossible. A year's salary she didn't have and would never have. Her cleaning job at the Kingston Hotel barely covered the rent on a room she shared with 2 other women. Her night shifts at the airport janitorial service kept food in her stomach. There was no savings account, no emergency fund, no fairy godmother with a briefcase full of miracles. Marcus. Her cousin. The same Marcus who'd promised to stay clean, who'd sworn the gambling was behind him, who'd used her name as collateral without asking. Tommy stumbled backward, her vision tunneling as panic crushed her lungs. The crowd blurred business suits and vacation wear and children with rolling suitcases. Gate 47 announcements echoed in Korean, then English, then languages she couldn't identify. She turned too fast, desperate for air, for space, for escape, and collided hard into something solid. Strong arms caught her before she fell, steadying her against a chest that smelled of bergamot and danger, the kind of cologne that came in bottles with French names she couldn't pronounce. I'm so sorry, The apology died when she looked up. The man holding her was devastating. Sharp Korean features carved from marble, dark eyes that didn't just look at her but through her, dissecting every secret she'd ever kept. A black suit so perfectly tailored it might have been painted on, probably cost more than every piece of clothing she'd ever owned combined. His jaw was severe, unforgiving. A thin scar cutting through his left eyebrow like a signature of violence. Power radiated from him, the way heat rises from asphalt in summer, undeniable, dangerous, absolute. His hands remained on her waist, fingers pressing slightly through the thin fabric of her cleaning uniform. The red dress with white apron that marked her as service, as invisible, as less than. She realized with horror that she was gripping his jacket, her face buried against his chest in what anyone watching would call an embrace. His eyes never left hers. Not cold, exactly. Calculating. Territorial. Like she'd just triggered something he didn't know was dormant. You're going nowhere, he said quietly. The words were Korean accented, his voice rough silk wrapped around steel. Not loud. He didn't need volume. The terminal seemed to hush around him anyway, as if the building itself recognized authority. Tammy tried to step back. His grip tightened, not painful, but unmistakable. 3 men in dark suits materialized from the crowd, hands moving toward weapons concealed under expertly cut jackets. The air shifted. Danger flooded the space between breaths. The man holding her raised one hand. The bodyguards froze. The terminal exhaled. I said. He repeated, his eyes dropping to her mouth, then back up. You're going nowhere. Not a threat. A claim. And somehow, Tammy knew with absolute certainty that her life had just been hijacked by a man whose name she didn't know but whose presence rewrote gravity itself. Now, let's go back to where it all began, to the moment 3 hours earlier, when Tammy Blackwell had no idea her name was about to become currency in a world she didn't know existed. 3 hours earlier, Tammy had finished scrubbing the marble floors of Madame Chen's penthouse suite at the Kempinski Hotel, her knees aching from the double shift she'd pulled to cover another worker's sick day. At 27, she already felt ancient, worn down by 2 jobs, her cousin's chaos, and the constant arithmetic of survival that never quite added up. Her reflection in the floor-to-ceiling windows always startled her. How could someone so exhausted still look so young? Her natural curls were pulled back in a tight bun, her brown skin glowing with perspiration, her red cleaning uniform hanging loose on her slender frame from the weight she'd lost stress eating less and working more. "Tammy, you heading to the airport run?" Lisa, her supervisor, called from the service elevator. "Yeah, Madame Chen's luggage." Tammy managed a tired smile. "Triple-checked the inventory. Everything's tagged. Girl, you're the only one she trusts with this." Lisa squeezed her shoulder. "Get that overtime pay and maybe take a day off sometime this century?" The laugh Tammy forced felt rusty. Days off were luxuries for people with safety nets. People whose cousins didn't gamble away money they didn't have using names they had no right to use. The taxi to Incheon International took 90 minutes through Seoul traffic that moved like honey. Tommy spent the ride calculating her remaining funds on the calculator app she'd downloaded because she couldn't afford mistakes. 287,000 inches, checking roughly $215 USD. 1,956,000 inches savings. $1,465 USD that she hadn't touched in 8 months, earmarked for nursing school applications she was too afraid to submit. She was making it work. Barely. Always barely. Her phone buzzed. "Marcus. Sis, call me back. Urgent." She turned the phone face down. Marcus's urgent always translated to money, and she'd bailed him out twice before with cash she'd needed for rent, for food, for survival. Not again. Never again. The airport terminal gleamed with wealth she'd only ever cleaned up after designer boutiques, expensive restaurants, travelers and athleisure that cost more than her monthly salary. Tammy kept her eyes down, moving through the crowds the way she'd learned to move through luxury hotels. Invisible, efficient, apologetic for taking up space. She was halfway through checking in Madame Chen's luggage at the first-class counter when her phone exploded with calls. Unknown numbers. International codes she didn't recognize. Then a text that turned her blood to ice. "Answer or regret it." She answered the next call, and that's when the floor dropped out from under her. $15,000 in gambling debts. Her name on Marcus's emergency contact. 24 hours to pay, or they'd come for her. "I didn't guarantee anything," she'd whispered into the phone, her voice breaking. "He used your address, your identification, your work history. You're responsible. Clock is ticking, Miss Blackwell." That's when she'd stumbled backward, desperate for air, for escape, for anything that made sense, and crashed into him. He should have ordered her punished. Instead, he studied the echo of her audacity. The 3 bodyguards surrounding them moved with synchronized precision, hands disappearing beneath tailored jackets where Tammy knew somehow new weapons waited. The kind of weapons that didn't appear in airport security screenings because men like this didn't go through security. They were security. They were the thing security feared. Her heart hammered against her ribs so hard she thought it might crack through bone. But the man holding her, the man whose face still stung from her accidental strike, raised one hand. A simple gesture, barely a movement at all. The bodyguards froze mid-reach. The terminal seemed to hold its breath. Travelers continued rushing past, oblivious to the violence that had almost erupted beside Gate 47's departure board. That was the most terrifying part, how invisible this moment was to everyone except the people trapped inside it. "Name," he said quietly. Not a question. A command wrapped in silk. I'm sorry, I didn't mean..." Tommy tried to pull away again. His fingers tightened on her waist. Not bruising, but absolutely unmovable. "Your name." His accent shaped the words carefully, each syllable pronounced with the precision of someone who'd learned English as a weapon, not a conversation. His eyes, dark as Seoul midnight, never left hers, and Tammy felt dissected under that gaze. Catalogued, memorized. "Tammy," she whispered. "Tammy Blackwell." Something flickered across his face. Not quite a smile, more like recognition of a fact filed away for future use. His gaze dropped to the luggage tag still clutched in her trembling hand. "Madame Chen, first class, seat 2A, then back to her red cleaning uniform with its white apron, the universal costume of invisible labor. "You're not flying," he observed. "No, I work. I was checking in my employer's." She stopped, hating how small her voice sounded, how apologetic. She'd spent 27 years apologizing for taking up space, and this man, this stranger who radiated danger like perfume, was making her feel it all over again. But something shifted in his expression when she said employer. His jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "The call you received," he said, still not releasing her. "The threat. Tell me. That's none of your, tell me." The command hit differently this time. Not cruel. Almost. Protective? No, that was insane. Men who traveled with armed bodyguards didn't protect cleaning women at airports. They ignored them. Everyone ignored them. Except he wasn't ignoring her. He was staring at her like she was an equation he couldn't solve, and Sung-hoon Ryu hadn't met an unsolvable problem in 15 years. "My cousin," Tommy heard herself say, the words spilling out against her better judgment. "He gambled. Used my name. They want $15,000 I don't have, and if I don't pay in 24 hours. Her voice cracked. The man's expression didn't change, but something behind his eyes went cold. Arctic cold. The kind of cold that preceded violence. How much time has passed since the call? Maybe 10 minutes? Then you have 23 hours and 50 minutes. He finally released her waist, but only to pull out his phone, sleek, black, the kind that probably cost more than her annual salary. His thumb moved across the screen with practiced efficiency. "Which carrier made the threat?" They didn't say their name. The accent. Eastern European? Russian? Ukrainian? Tammy blinked. "Russian, maybe? I'm not sure." His jaw tightened again. He typed something, then looked back at her with an expression she couldn't read. "You're going to walk with me now. We're going to avoid a scene." "A scene? I'm the one who should be leaving." "No. Simple. Final. You're going nowhere." He said it like a fact of physics. Gravity, thermodynamics. Tammy Blackwell going nowhere. One of the bodyguards, a man built like a concrete wall with a scar bisecting his left eyebrow, stepped closer. "Boss, we have the car waiting. Move it to Terminal 2, private entrance. I'll call when we're ready." The man's eyes never left Tammy's face. "And run the name Tammy Blackwell. Employment history, residence, family connections. I want everything." "Boss." He'd called him boss. Tammy's stomach dropped. "What are you? Some kind of... someone who can make your problem disappear?" He gestured toward the terminal's west corridor, away from the crowds. "Walk. And if I run?" For the first time, his expression shifted into something almost resembling amusement. Not quite a smile, but close. Dangerous and devastating all at once. "You won't." The arrogance should have infuriated her. Instead, Tammy found herself taking a step forward, then another. Maybe it was shock. Maybe it was the exhaustion of carrying too much weight for too many years. Maybe it was the way he looked at her, not through her, not past her, but at her like she was visible for the first time in her life. They walked in silence through corridors that seemed to empty around them, as if other travelers instinctively knew to give this man space. His bodyguards followed at a distance, shadows with heartbeats. "You dress like someone who's been taught to be invisible," he said quietly. Not an insult, an observation. Tammy's spine straightened. "I dress like someone who works for a living." "Yes." He glanced at her. "But you don't carry yourself like someone who bows. We don't do that in Jamaica." "Good." The word came out like approval, and something warm unfurled in Tammy's chest, despite every survival instinct screaming at her to run. They stopped at an unmarked door near the terminal's edge. He pressed his palm to a biometric scanner. Of course he had access to restricted areas, and the door slid open to reveal a private lounge that looked like it belonged in a 5-star hotel, not an airport. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the runway. Leather furniture that probably cost more than Tommy's childhood home. A bar stocked with bottles she'd only ever dusted, never tasted. "Sit," he said. "I should go." "Sit." Tammy Blackwell who doesn't bow. He moved to the bar, poured something amber into crystal. "You're in shock. Your hands are still shaking." She looked down. He was right. Slowly, she sank into a chair that felt like sitting on a cloud. Her red uniform looked garish against the cream leather. Wrong. Out of place. He handed her the glass. Their fingers brushed. Electricity shot up her arm. "I don't drink," she whispered. "Today you do." He sat across from her, close enough that their knees almost touched. "Tell me about your cousin." And despite every reason not to, despite not knowing his name, despite the bodyguards, despite the obvious danger radiating from him like heat, Tammy told him everything. Sung-hoon listened to every word with an intensity that made Tammy feel like her story mattered, like she mattered. And when she finished, he didn't offer sympathy or platitudes. He pulled out his phone and made a single call. "Clear it," he said in Korean, his voice dropping into a register that made the language sound like a threat. 15,000. Blackwell. Cousin named Marcus. Russian carrier. Probably Volkov branch. I want confirmation in 10 minutes and elimination in 24 hours. He ended the call, looked at Tammy. "It's handled. Just like that." As if erasing $15,000 in debt was as simple as ordering coffee. "Who are you?" Tommy whispered. Sung-hoon Ryu smiled barely, dangerously. "Someone you should probably run from." But Tammy didn't move, and deep in the part of him he thought had died with his mother on a mansion's service floor, Sung-hoon felt something dormant crack open. In his world, problems evaporate before petitions form. The phone on the glass table between them buzzed exactly 9 minutes and 43 seconds later. Sung-hoon picked it up without breaking eye contact with Tammy, whose hands had finally stopped shaking around the crystal glass she hadn't sipped from. He listened for 15 seconds, said one word, "Good," ended the call. "The debt is cleared," he said simply, setting the phone face down. "Marcus will receive confirmation within the hour. The organization that contacted you has been compensated for their loss and strongly encouraged to forget your name." Tammy stared at him. "That's impossible." "Nothing is impossible with the right leverage. I can't pay you back $15,000. I didn't ask you to." Sung-hoon leaned back, studying her with that unnerving intensity that made her feel simultaneously visible and vulnerable. "Consider it an investment." "In what?" "That remains to be seen." Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, a plane lifted off the runway, defying gravity through pure force and engineering. Tammy felt like that plane caught in something powerful and incomprehensible, with no idea if she was being rescued or stolen. "Why would you do this for a stranger?" Her voice came out smaller than she wanted. Something dangerous flickered across Sung-hoon's face. "You're not a stranger anymore. You touched me. That was an accident. Accidents don't exist in my world. Only consequences." He stood, moving to the window with his back to her. His shoulders were rigid beneath the expensive suit. "My mother cleaned floors in houses like the one you probably work in. She scrubbed toilets for women who never learned her name. She carried weight she shouldn't have carried, wore invisible chains she didn't choose." Tammy's breath caught. "When she died," his voice didn't change, but his hands curled into fists at his sides. "She was on her knees, literally, scrubbing someone else's marble, while her heart gave out from exhaustion and indignity." The silence stretched between them like a wound. "I was 17, he continued, already deep in my uncle's organization, already learning that power isn't given, it's taken. I swore that day that no woman who reminded me of her would ever beg for safety while I had the means to provide it." Tammy set down the glass with trembling fingers. "I remind you of your mother?" He turned to face her, and the look in his eyes was devastating. "You remind me of what the world does to women who fight alone." Before she could respond, his phone buzzed again. This time, his expression hardened as he read whatever message appeared on screen. "Problem?" Tammy asked. "Opportunity." He typed something quickly. "The organization I just paid off? They'll want to know why Sung-hoon Ryu personally cleared a cleaning woman's debt. That question will reach certain ears within hours." "Is that bad?" "It's complicated." He pocketed the phone. "I have rivals who look for leverage, weaknesses, anything they can exploit in the succession war." "Succession war?" Tammy stood slowly. "Who are you?" Sung-hoon crossed the room in 3 strides, stopping close enough that she had to tilt her head back to maintain eye contact. Close enough that she could smell bergamot and danger and something darker underneath gunpowder, maybe, or just power. "Someone who makes problems disappear," he said quietly. "Someone whose name opens doors and closes mouths. Someone you should thank and then forget. And if I can't forget?" The corner of his mouth lifted barely. "Then we'll have another problem." What Tammy didn't see. 3 terminals away, a man in a janitor's uniform lowered his phone, the camera lens still warm from recording. He'd captured everything, the private lounge entry, the intimate conversation visible through the windows, the way Sung-hoon Ryu had stood close enough to claim. The photos were already uploading to an encrypted server, already flagged for immediate review by the Choi clan, the rival organization that had been waiting years for Sung-hoon to show weakness. A woman was weakness. A woman in a cleaning uniform was opportunity. Within the hour, Tammy Blackwell's face would be on screens in 3 countries. Her background excavated, her vulnerabilities mapped. The war flag wasn't being raised. It was already flying. Sung-hoon's phone buzzed a 3rd time. His expression went arctic. "We need to move. Now." "What's wrong?" "Someone photographed us." He was already moving toward the door, his hand finding the small of her back with proprietary ease. Rival surveillance. They know you're with me. Tammy's legs locked. I should leave. I should get out of your life before. Too late. He turned her to face him, both hands on her shoulders now. Listen carefully. You walked into my world the moment you touched me. Whether you stay or run, they'll come for you now, not because of your cousin's debt, but because I protected you. That makes you valuable, as leverage against you. Yes. Then let me go. Pretend this never happened. I don't pretend. His grip tightened slightly. And I don't let go of what's mine. I'm not. You are now. He pulled out his phone, sent a rapid series of messages. My men are securing your apartment. Your cousin will be relocated to a safe house. Anyone connected to the original threat will be handled. Handled. Sung-hoon's smile was cold enough to frost the windows. You'll never see them again. No one will. Tammy should have been terrified. Instead, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Protected. What do you want from me? She whispered. His thumb brushed across her collarbone, a gesture so gentle it contradicted everything else about him. I don't know yet, but I have time to figure it out. You can't just. I already did. He guided her toward a service elevator she hadn't noticed. Welcome to my world, Tommy Blackwell. Try not to get killed in it. The elevator doors closed, and Tommy realized with absolute certainty that her life had just been hijacked by a man who made debt disappear with phone calls and enemies vanish before dawn. A man whose mother had died on her knees. A man who'd just claimed her as his in a war she didn't understand. And the most terrifying part? She wasn't sure she wanted to escape. Defiance meets underworld legacy at a baggage carousel. Tammy tried to leave 3 times in the next 4 hours. Each time, the universe conspired against her. Attempt 1. Immigration. She'd made it to the departure gate, her original flight to Kingston, now impossibly delayed by mechanical issues that Sung-hoon's driver had mentioned with suspicious timing. Standing in the rebooking line, Tammy clutched her phone, trying to ignore the black SUV idling at the curb visible through the terminal windows. She wasn't his property. She wasn't anyone's property. Next passenger, please. Tammy stepped forward, boarding pass trembling in her hand, and walked directly into Sung-hoon emerging from the first-class lounge. He caught her elbow, steadied her. Again. Leaving without saying goodbye? His voice carried amusement that didn't reach his eyes. I have a life to get back to. The life where you work 2 jobs to stay invisible? That life? He glanced at her boarding pass. Kingston flight's been moved to gate 32B. 17-hour delay. Mechanical failure. Convenient, isn't it? He guided her away from the counter, his hand firm at her waist. Have dinner with me. It's not a request. But his voice softened. Please. That single word please delivered in his accented English cracked something in her chest. 1 dinner, she heard herself say. His smile was devastating. 1 dinner. Attempt 2. Duty-free collision. 2 hours later, Tommy stood in the duty-free cosmetics aisle, staring at perfumes she could never afford. The dinner had been unsettling. Not because Sung-hoon was dangerous, she'd already catalogued that danger, but because he'd been human. Asking about her dreams, her nursing school plans, her childhood in Kingston, listening like her answers mattered. She'd almost forgotten he was a man who made people disappear. That one suits you better, Tammy startled, dropping the perfume bottle she'd been testing. Sung-hoon caught it midair, of course he did, and set it gently back on the display. Are you following me? She demanded. Yes. No hesitation. No apology. That's necessary. He picked up a different bottle, Tom Ford, something French she couldn't pronounce. This one. Neroli and jasmine. It matches your defiance. My what? He sprayed a small amount on her wrist, his fingers wrapping around her arm with careful pressure, lifted her wrist to his face. Inhaled slowly. The intimacy of the gesture made Tammy's breath stall. Your defiance, he repeated quietly. The thing that makes you refuse to bow even when bowing would be safer. The thing that made you slap a stranger at an airport instead of cowering. His thumb pressed against her racing pulse. I've met men twice your size with half your courage. I'm not brave. I was panicked. Panic doesn't explain why you're still here. His eyes locked on hers. Why you haven't actually gotten on a plane despite 3 chances. Why you're standing in duty-free at midnight testing perfumes you think you can't afford. Stop analyzing me. Stop lying to yourself. He released her wrist, but the ghost of his touch remained. You're curious. About me. About this. This. Whatever this is. He gestured between them, the charged space that felt like lightning waiting to strike. I don't know what to call it either. Before Tammy could respond, someone bumped into her from behind hard enough to send her stumbling forward into Sung-hoon's chest. Again, his arms came around her automatically, protective, possessive. Careful, he murmured against her hair. But when Tammy looked back, the man who'd bumped her was gone. Just another anonymous traveler disappearing into the terminal's endless stream. Sung-hoon's expression darkened. Luca, one of his bodyguards, materialized from nowhere. Sir, find him. 5'9", gray jacket, airport employee badge. I want to know who sent him. Sent him? Tammy pulled back. It was an accident. Nothing is an accident. Sung-hoon's jaw was granite. Not in my world. Attempt 3. Coffee standoff. By 2 a.m., the airport had shifted into its nocturnal rhythm, fewer crowds, dimmer lights, the kind of liminal space where reality felt negotiable. Tammy sat in a 24-hour cafe near her gate, nursing black coffee she couldn't taste. Sung-hoon sat across from her, having appeared 15 minutes earlier with 2 croissants, and the kind of confidence that suggested he owned the establishment. Maybe he did. Tell me about Jamaica, he said. Why? Because I want to know. Such a simple answer. Such an impossible request. It's loud, Tammy said finally. Colorful. Everyone knows everyone's business, but in a way that feels like family instead of surveillance. We dance when we should be working. We cook food that takes 3 days to prepare for parties that last 10 minutes. She stopped, homesickness welling up. We don't bow to people just because they have money. No? No. She met his eyes defiantly. We bow to character, to strength that protects instead of destroys, to people who remember where they came from. Sung-hoon was quiet for a long moment. And if someone came from destruction, from blood legacy and criminal empire, would you bow then? Is that what you came from? Yes. The word hung between them like a guillotine. Then I'd ask, Tammy said carefully, if that person chose to stay in destruction, or if they're building something better with the materials they inherited. His expression shifted, something vulnerable breaking through the ice. And if the answer is complicated? Everything worth knowing is complicated. Sung-hoon leaned forward, elbows on the table, close enough that she could count the shadows under his eyes. You challenge me. Good. You don't fear me. I fear what you represent, not who you are. You don't know who I am. Tammy smiled, sad, tired, honest. Then tell me. Stop talking in riddles and power plays and just tell me. He opened his mouth. The lights flickered. Once, twice, then died completely. The terminal plunged into darkness as emergency lighting kicked in red, exit signs glowing like warnings. Storms here, someone muttered in Korean. But Sung-hoon wasn't looking at the windows. He was looking at Tammy. Seems the universe wants us grounded, he said quietly. And Tommy realized with electric certainty, they weren't the only thing grounded tonight. The announcement crackled through dying speakers. All flights suspended until further notice. Tropical storm Hana has closed runways indefinitely. Travelers groaned, scrambling for hotel vouchers. But Sung-hoon just smiled, that rare, devastating expression that made him look almost human. Looks like you're stuck with me, Tammy Blackwell. Looks like, she whispered, and didn't move from her seat. Okay, I need to know, are you team run or team stay? Should Tommy get on that plane or trust the man who just cleared her debt without blinking? Comment your vote below, and if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? My mom said I'd never hit 1K subs with romance this spicy. Let's prove her wrong together. Nature forced stillness. He forced truth. The blackout lasted 7 minutes before backup generators kicked in, bathing Incheon International in the sickly yellow glow of emergency lighting. Rain hammered the terminal windows like fists demanding entry. Thunder rolled through the building's steel bones. Tropical storm Hana had arrived early and angry. Sung-hoon had moved them back to gate 47, the exact spot where Tammy had crashed into him hours earlier. A strange full circle that felt less like coincidence and more like destiny, having a sense of irony. They sat on the floor, backs against the windows, while stranded travelers sprawled across every available surface. The airport had transformed into a refugee camp of delayed dreams and canceled plans. Tell me what you're afraid of, Sung-hoon said suddenly. Tammy looked at him sidelong. Besides tropical storms and men who make debt disappear? Besides that. The darkness made confession easier. Or maybe it was exhaustion. Or maybe it was the way he'd stayed beside her for 8 hours now without demanding anything except her presence. Being small forever, she heard herself say. Working 2 jobs until my back gives out like my mother's did. Dying invisible, never mattering enough for anyone to remember my name. She drew her knees to her chest. I'm afraid of becoming one of those people the world just erases. Sung-hoon was quiet for a long moment. Outside, lightning turned the runway silver. You're already visible, he said finally. Invisibility is something you chose as armor, protection. But you're not invisible to me. Because I slapped you. Because you exist loudly in a world that wants you quiet. He turned to face her fully. I've met kings and killers, politicians and criminals. Most of them bow when I enter rooms. You asked me to prove my character. Is that why you're still here? I'm here because walking away from you feels like cutting off circulation. His voice dropped. And I don't know what to do with that. Tammy's heart hammered. Sung-hoon, I can't erase your childhood, he interrupted. Can't give you back years spent surviving instead of living. Can't fix poverty or systemic invisibility, or the fact that the world values labor over laborers. His hand found hers in the darkness. But I can erase enemies who try to end you early. I can put my body between you and everything that's tried to make you small. I can make sure no one ever threatens you without consequences again. That's not love. That's protection. In my world, they're the same thing. Thunder cracked overhead, shaking the terminal's foundations. What's your world like? Tammy asked quietly. Really? Sung-hoon's thumb traced circles on her palm, an absent gesture that felt like intimacy. Brutal, efficient, built on violence and maintained through fear. My uncle holds the ceremonial title, but I hold the execution. The blood, the decisions that keep men awake at night. He paused. I've done things that would make you run. Try me. I've killed men. The words should have sent her scrambling away. Instead, Tammy squeezed his hand. To protect people, or to hurt them? Both, depending on the day. And which one haunts you more? He looked at her then, really looked, and Tammy saw something raw behind the ice. The ones I killed to protect, because it means I cared enough to stain my hands with their blood. Caring isn't weakness. In succession wars, it's fatal. His jaw tightened. My rivals are already mapping your vulnerabilities. The coffee shop collision? Surveillance. The duty-free encounter? Reconnaissance. They're building a file on Tammy Blackwell to use when it strategically matters. Then let me leave. Disappear before I become your liability. Too late. His grip tightened. The moment I protected you, I claimed you. In my world, that's a declaration. Backing down now shows weakness. Weakness invites war. So I'm a chess piece? No. He pulled her hand to his chest, over his heart that beat steady and strong. You're the thing I didn't plan for. The variable that makes equations unsolvable. The reason I'm sitting on an airport floor during a storm instead of dismantling rival operations from a hotel suite. Tommy's breath caught. What are you saying? I'm saying I see love as a liability. A weakness men exploit. A distraction from power. His forehead dropped to touch hers. But you're becoming the first exception to every rule I built my empire on. The terminal lights flickered again. Somewhere in the darkness, a child cried. And Tammy Blackwell, cleaning woman from Kingston who'd accidentally slapped a Korean crime lord, made a decision that would alter both their futures. I'm not asking you to be good, she whispered. I'm asking you to be honest. Can you do that? For you? Sung-hoon's breath ghosted across her lips. I can try. They stayed like that, foreheads pressed together, hands intertwined while the storm raged and the airport held its breath. Tammy realized she'd stopped trying to leave. Sung-hoon realized he'd stopped calculating exit strategies. Outside Gate 47's windows, rain turned Seoul into watercolor. Inside, something fragile and dangerous began growing between worlds that should never touch. Tell me about nursing school, he said quietly. So she did. And he listened like her dreams were strategies worth investing in. Her past showed up late, loud, and irrelevant. His world responded early and quietly irreversible. The storm broke at dawn, leaving Seoul washed clean and the airport scrambling to reorganize thousands of displaced travelers. Tammy had dozed against Sung-hoon's shoulder sometime around 4 a.m., an intimacy born of exhaustion and the strange trust that had grown in the darkness. She woke to find him watching her, his expression unreadable. You drool when you sleep, he said. I do not. She touched her mouth. Dry. You're lying. Testing if you'd believe me. His almost smile appeared. You're learning not to. Before Tammy could respond, a voice cut through the terminal's chaos. Tammy? Tammy Blackwell? She froze. That voice. She knew that voice. Marcus's friend. The one who'd visited Kingston 2 years ago. The one who'd... Devon? She turned to see a man pushing through the crowd. His expression stormy with barely contained anger. Tall, broad-shouldered, with the kind of conventional handsomeness that had once made her stomach flutter. Once. Before she'd learned that pretty faces often hid manipulation. "What the hell are you doing here?" Devin demanded, stopping 3 feet away. His eyes flicked to Sung-hoon, then back. "And who is he?" Tammy stood slowly, suddenly aware of how this looked, her rumpled cleaning uniform. Sung-hoon's protective proximity, the intimacy of their positioning. "Devin, what are you doing here?" "Looking for you. Marcus said you were in Seoul." He stopped, jaw tightening. "Actually, never mind Marcus. Are you going to explain why you're cuddled up with some corporate suit while your family is dealing with debt collectors? That's none of your business. You made it my business when you ghosted me after Kingston." Devin stepped closer, aggressive. 3 months of calls, Tammy. 3 months of trying to make things right after our fight, and you just disappeared. Now I find you here, with him. Sung-hoon rose in one fluid motion, positioning himself slightly in front of Tammy, not blocking her, but present, undeniable. "She asked you to step back," he said quietly. Perfect English, zero warmth. Devin laughed harsh, bitter. "And who are you? Her new boyfriend? Moving on pretty fast, aren't we?" "Devin, stop," Tommy began. "No, I want to know." Devin's hands curled into fists. "I fly all the way to Seoul because I'm worried about you. And I find you playing house with some—" He didn't finish the sentence. Sung-hoon moved faster than Tommy could track, one moment standing beside her, the next gripping Devin's wrist with enough pressure to make the larger man wince. "Choose your next words carefully," Sung-hoon said, his voice dropping to that dangerous register Tommy had heard him use on the phone. "Because they'll determine whether you leave this terminal walking or carried." Sung-hoon, Tommy grabbed his arm. "Don't." His eyes flicked to her. Something in her expression made him release Devin's wrist, but he didn't step back. Devin rubbed his wrist, eyes narrowing. "Corporate suit with that kind of grip? Let me guess, security? Private military?" His gaze raked over Sung-hoon's expensive suit, the barely concealed weapon at his hip, the 2 bodyguards who'd materialized from nowhere. "Or something less legal? Devin, you need to leave," Tommy said firmly. "Not until you explain." "I don't owe you explanations. We haven't spoken in 2 years. Because you ran? Because you were suffocating me." The words burst out louder than Tammy intended. Travelers nearby turned to stare. She lowered her voice. "You wanted me to be smaller, quieter. You wanted me to give up nursing school to support your music career. You wanted—" She stopped, breathing hard. "You wanted me to be invisible so you could be visible. And I refused." Devin's expression twisted. "That's not I was trying to help. You were trying to control." Tammy stepped forward, drawing strength from Sung-hoon's solid presence behind her. "I'm not that woman anymore. Leave, Devin, now." For a moment, Devin's expression flickered, and in that flicker, Tammy saw something wrong, something rehearsed. His anger was real, but underneath it, calculation. Sung-hoon saw it too. His hand found Tommy's lower back, grip tightening in warning. "How did you know she was in Seoul?" Sung-hoon asked quietly. Devin blinked. "Marcus told me." "Marcus, who's been relocated to a safe house with no outside communication access since midnight." Sung-hoon's smile was glacial. "Try again." The air changed. Devin's stance shifted, less ex-boyfriend, more operative, caught in position. "Luca," Sung-hoon said calmly. Both bodyguards moved simultaneously, flanking Devin with practiced precision. "Wait, I don't know what you think." Devin raised his hands. "I think you were sent." Sung-hoon pulled out his phone, typed rapidly. "I think the coffee collision was reconnaissance. I think the duty-free encounter was mapping routine. I think every coincidence in the last 12 hours was choreographed." He looked up, and his expression could have frozen fire. "And I think you just confirmed it by knowing Tammy's location without credible explanation." Devin's face went pale. "I'm just a concerned friend. Your surveillance." Sung-hoon showed him the phone screen surveillance photos from 3 different angles, all time-stamped within the last 18 hours. Choi clan payroll. Low-level operative, probably promised money or leverage to get close to her. Tammy's stomach dropped. "He's not my ex?" "Oh, he probably was at some point." Sung-hoon pocketed the phone. "But coincidental timing suggests recruitment. They found someone from your past with an existing emotional connection, and weaponized it." "Jesus, Devin." Tammy stared at him. "How much did they pay you?" Devin's silence was answer enough. "Get him out of my sight," Sung-hoon said flatly. "And find out who his handler is." The bodyguards moved to comply. "Wait," Devin struggled. "I didn't know they just said to make contact to see if she was really involved with you." And now you've confirmed I'm involved enough to protect her. Sung-hoon's smile was vicious. Congratulations. You just started a war. The bodyguards escorted Devon away, his protests fading into the terminal's chaos. Tammy stood frozen, processing. They used my past against me. They'll use everything against you. Sung-hoon turned her to face him, both hands on her shoulders. Past, present, fear, hope, anything that makes you vulnerable. That's how succession wars work. Scorched earth and surgical strikes. What happens now? His expression hardened. Now I respond. Respond how? By showing them that targeting you is a fatal mistake. He pulled out his phone, made a call, spoke in rapid Korean that sounded like tactical deployment. When he hung up, his eyes met hers. By midnight, the Choi operation in Seoul will be dismantled. Not warned, not negotiated with, erased. Tommy's voice came out small. Because of me. Because they touched what's mine. He cupped her face gently, the contrast between his words and his touch devastating. In my world, that's an act of war. Wars end swiftly and absolutely, or they consume everything. I don't want people dead because of me. They won't be dead because of you. They'll be dead because they declared war on me and chose poorly. His thumb brushed her cheekbone. You're not responsible for violence that predates your existence in my life, Tommy. You're just the catalyst that forced decisions already waiting to be made. Thunder rumbled distantly, the storm's last warning before departure, and Tammy realized she was standing in the eye of a different storm entirely. One that wore expensive suits and made people disappear before dawn. One that looked at her like she was worth starting wars over. I should still leave, she whispered, but she didn't move. Too late, Sung-hoon said again. You stopped leaving the moment you decided to stay, and despite everything, the surveillance, the betrayal, the looming violence, Tommy knew he was right. She'd stopped leaving hours ago. Maybe at gate 47, maybe at the private lounge, maybe the instant his arms had caught her, and he'd said those 3 words. You're going nowhere. She didn't run when he revealed his sins. She requested the rest of the man attached to them. They returned to gate 47 as the sun rose properly over Seoul, turning the terminal's glass walls into prisms of light. Sung-hoon had made 17 phone calls in the last 2 hours, some in Korean, some in what sounded like Mandarin, all in that flat, deadly tone that preceded consequences. Tammy sat watching him orchestrate violence from a departure lounge, and the cognitive dissonance made her dizzy. This man who'd bought her coffee and listened to her dreams about nursing school was simultaneously dismantling a criminal organization because they dared to photograph her. It's done, he said finally, pocketing his phone. The Choi clan's Seoul operations are collapsing as we speak. Leadership will be in hiding by noon. Foot soldiers will disperse or disappear. He sat beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. Your name has been scrubbed from every file, every database, every surveillance photo. As far as their organization knows, you never existed. Just like that, just like that. Tommy studied his profile, the sharp jawline, the scar through his eyebrow, the way exhaustion shadowed his eyes despite perfect posture. How many people will die from what you just ordered? He didn't flinch from the question. Depends on how smart they are. If they run, 0. If they fight, he shrugged. Less than 10. I'm efficient, not sadistic. That's supposed to comfort me? No, it's supposed to show you who I am. He turned to face her fully. I'm not a good man, Tammy. I'm not a hero in a story where violence is sanitized and consequences are metaphorical. I kill people. I destroy lives. I build empires on fear and maintain them through calculated brutality. I know. Do you? His hand found hers. Because knowing intellectually and accepting viscerally are different things. I need you to understand what you're walking into if you stay. Then tell me everything. Tammy squeezed his fingers. Stop giving me pieces. Give me the whole truth. Sung-hoon was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then, my uncle, Ryu Jin-woo, is the ceremonial head of our organization, what outsiders might call the Korean Mafia, though we're more sophisticated than that implies. We control shipping lanes, airport security contracts, political appointments, and approximately 40% of Seoul's luxury real estate. His voice was clinical, detached. We're not the only organization, which is why succession wars happen. Power vacuums invite chaos. And you? I'm the heir. Not by choice, by blood and brutal competence. My uncle holds the title, but I hold the execution, the strategy, the decisions that keep our empire functioning while other organizations collapse. He paused. I'm 28 years old, and I've been responsible for millions of dollars and thousands of lives since I was 19. Tammy processed that. That's when your mother died. Yes. His jaw tightened. Uncle Jin-woo took me in, trained me, showed me that power is the only protection that matters, that caring for people makes you vulnerable, that love is leverage waiting to be exploited. Is that what you believe? It's what I believed. He looked at her. Until you, the words hung between them like a declaration and a confession. Sung-hoon, you're the first person in 9 years who makes me want to be different. His voice roughened. Not good. I don't think I'm capable of good anymore. But different. Less cold. More human. His thumb traced her knuckles. And that terrifies me, because wanting things makes you vulnerable. Caring about outcomes beyond strategy makes you exploitable. What do you want from me? Tammy asked quietly. Everything. Simple. Devastating. I want you to stay. To build something with me that doesn't exist yet, something between your world and mine. I want to fund your nursing school and watch you become the woman you're meant to be, instead of the woman survival forced you to be. He pulled her closer. I want to put my empire between you and everything that's tried to make you small. And what do I give you? Sung-hoon's smile was sad. Color. Warmth. Proof that humanity still exists underneath the ice. Tammy's heart hammered. That's not a fair exchange. Nothing about this is fair. He cupped her face with both hands. You should run. Get on the next flight to Kingston and forget you ever met me. Build a life where men like me are characters and stories, not consequences you navigate. But you won't let me run. No. His forehead touched hers. Because I'm selfish. Because I've spent 9 years being what my world needs, and for once I want what I need. And I need... His voice cracked slightly. I need you to tell me this isn't insane. Tammy's breath shuddered out. It's completely insane. I know. You're dangerous. I know. You've killed people. Yes. You'll kill more people. Probably. She pulled back enough to meet his eyes. But you'll never lie to me about who you are. Never. And you'll let me build my own life, nursing school, career, choices without controlling me. I'll fund it, protect it, and stand back while you build it. His hand slid to her shoulders. I want a partner, Tammy. Not a possession. Not a trophy. Someone who chooses to stand beside me, knowing exactly what that means. Even though it makes you vulnerable. Especially because it makes me vulnerable. His smile was barely there. Turns out I'm tired of being invincible and empty. They sat in silence while the terminal woke fully around them, travelers rushing past, announcements echoing, the airport returning to controlled chaos. Finally, Tammy spoke. If your world is death, mine will be life. Sung-hoon's eyes widened slightly. I won't apologize for building instead of destroying, she continued. For healing instead of hurting. For choosing color over ice. Her hand found his chest, over his heart. But I won't ask you to be something you're not. I'll just ask that you remember who you are with me is different than who you are without me. And what am I with you? Human, she smiled. Complicated, capable of growth. She paused. Mine. The possessive word made his breath catch. Say that again, he whispered. Mine. Bolder now. You claimed me at gate 47. I'm claiming you back. Fair exchange. Sung-hoon's hand slid into her hair, tilting her face up. Tammy Blackwell. An alarm shrilled through the terminal. Security alert. All personnel to designated stations. Passenger in Sector 7 requires immediate response. Sung-hoon's phone buzzed urgently. He swore in Korean, reading the message. What's wrong? Uncle Jin-woo just arrived. His expression went carefully blank. He knows about you, and he's not happy. Tammy's stomach dropped. What does that mean? It means the real war just started. He pulled her to standing. And this time you're not collateral. What am I? Sung-hoon's smile was vicious and proud all at once. The queen who refuses to hide. Love wasn't forbidden because she was a maid. Love was forbidden because he was a king in a world no innocence survives. Ryu Jin-woo arrived like winter cold, inevitable, and hostile to anything green trying to grow. He was shorter than Sung-hoon but broader. His 63 years carried with military precision. Expensive suit, steel gray hair, eyes that calculated profit margins and body counts with equal dispassion. He moved through Terminal 2's private corridor flanked by 6 bodyguards, and travelers parted instinctively prey, recognizing predator even without context. Sung-hoon positioned himself slightly in front of Tommy, his posture shifting into something harder. Battle ready. Uncle, he said in Korean. Formal, cold. Jin-woo stopped 10 feet away, his gaze sliding past Sung-hoon to land on Tammy with the kind of assessment that made her skin crawl. Not sexual, worse. Evaluative. Like she was merchandise being appraised and found wanting. "So this is the cleaning woman," Jinwoo said in English, accented but precise. "The reason you started a war with the Choi clan. The reason my phone has been exploding with questions from contacts in 3 countries. She has a name," Sung-hoon said flatly. "I'm sure she does." Jinwoo's smile didn't reach his eyes. "Miss Blackwell, I am Ryu Jinwoo, head of the Ryu family organization, and you have become a very expensive problem." Tommy lifted her chin. "I didn't ask for any of this. No one asks for war. It simply arrives." He turned to Sung-hoon, switching to Korean. Sung-hoon responded in kind, rapid, heated exchanges that Tommy couldn't follow but understood viscerally. They were fighting about her. After 3 minutes, Jinwoo held up a hand. Silence fell like a blade. "English," he said. "So Miss Blackwell understands the situation clearly." "She already understands," Sung-hoon began. "She understands sentiment, not strategy." Jinwoo clasped his hands behind his back. "Miss Blackwell, my nephew has made you visible to our world. That visibility has consequences. Rival organizations now believe you are leverage, a weakness, something they can exploit to wound him, and, by extension, our family. I never wanted to be leverage, yet here we are." Jinwoo's expression didn't change. "Which presents 3 options. 1. You disappear. We relocate you somewhere our enemies can't reach, with enough money to start over. You live comfortably and invisible. Sung-hoon moves forward with his life and eventual succession." "No," Sung-hoon said immediately. Jinwoo ignored him. 2. You stay, but hidden. Sung-hoon's secret. Never acknowledged publicly. Never photographed. Never confirmed. You exist in shadows while he builds his public legacy. "Also no," Sung-hoon growled. 3. Jinwoo's eyes hardened. "You stay openly. Sung-hoon claims you formally in front of the organization, making you a legitimate part of our world. This option invites escalated violence, questions of judgment, and potential challenges to his succession." He paused. "It also requires you to be more than a cleaning woman." The insult landed with surgical precision. Tommy's jaw tightened. Meaning you'd need education, refinement, strategic value beyond emotional attachment." Jinwoo waved a dismissive hand. "Our family deals in power and perception. You offer neither, uncle." Sung-hoon's voice dropped dangerously low. "I'm being practical." Jinwoo met his nephew's glare without flinching. "You're thinking with sentiment instead of strategy. This woman makes you vulnerable. Vulnerability gets men killed in succession wars. This woman," Tammy said quietly, "is standing right here." Both men looked at her. She stepped out from behind Sung-hoon, forcing herself to meet Jinwoo's calculating gaze. "You're right. I'm a cleaning woman. I work 2 jobs. I have maybe $1,500 in savings and an unfinished nursing school application." Her voice steadied. "But I've survived 27 years in a world that wanted me invisible. I've carried weight that would break men twice my size. I've built something from nothing, over and over, without protection or privilege." "Admirable," Jinwoo said flatly. "Also irrelevant too." "I'm not finished." Tammy's spine straightened. "You see me as weakness because I don't come from power. But Sung-hoon sees me as strength because I've survived without it. That's not sentiment. That's strategic assessment of resilience." Silence. Jinwoo's expression flickered surprise, maybe, or grudging respect. "You have defiance," he admitted. "But defiance without power is just noise. Then give her power." Everyone turned to Sung-hoon. He stood with his hands in his pockets, posture casual, but his eyes were ice. "You want her to have strategic value? Fund her nursing degree. Full scholarship, accelerated program. She graduates with credentials that open doors, healthcare, humanitarian work, legitimate connections separate from family business." "Why would I?" "Because it neutralizes the cleaning woman narrative our rivals are building." Sung-hoon's smile was sharp. Instead of Mafia heir distracted by poor woman, the story becomes strategic alliance with humanitarian, who brings medical expertise and international aid connections. We spin her poverty as authenticity, her career as asset. Jinwoo's eyes narrowed. "You've thought this through." "I think everything through." Sung-hoon moved to stand beside Tommy, not behind her or in front of her, beside. "I'm not asking permission to be with her. I'm informing you of my decision and proposing strategy to minimize risk. Risk can't be minimized, only managed. Then I'll manage it." Sung-hoon's hand found Tammy's. "She stays, openly, as my acknowledged partner. Anyone who targets her dies. Anyone who questions my judgment answers to consequences." And our organization gains exactly what you said we needed, perception of humanity without sacrificing perception of power. Jinwoo was quiet for a long, dangerous moment. Then he laughed cold, sharp, humorless. You're willing to risk succession for her? Yes. Willing to make enemies of organizations that could strengthen through alliance? Yes. Willing to show vulnerability in a world where vulnerability is fatal? Yes. Sung-hoon's grip on Tammy's hand tightened. Because she's not vulnerability. She's the thing that makes power worth having. Jinwoo studied them both with the intensity of a general assessing battlefield positions. And you, Miss Blackwell, are you willing to enter this world knowing that staying with him makes you a permanent target? That our enemies will study you, test you, try to use you? That your life will never be private or simple again? Tammy thought about Kingston. About scrubbing toilets. About invisibility and exhaustion, and dreams deferred so long they'd calcified into regrets. She thought about Sung-hoon's hands catching her at gate 47, about the way he listened like her words mattered, about protection that felt like partnership instead of possession. I'm willing, she said clearly. Jinwoo sighed, the sound of a chess player recognizing inevitable checkmate. Then you're both fools. Probably, Sung-hoon agreed. But you're committed fools. Jinwoo's expression hardened. Fine. She stays. But there are conditions. Name them. 1. She completes her education. I will not have my organization associated with wasted potential. Agreed. 2. She learns basic security protocols. Self-defense, situational awareness, emergency procedures. I won't have her death on my conscience because she walked into obvious danger. Already planned. 3. Jinwoo's eyes locked on Tammy. You never embarrass this family. Whatever personal feelings exist between you and my nephew, publicly you represent Ryu legacy. Dignity, strength, strategic value. Understood? Tammy nodded slowly. Understood. Good. Jinwoo turned to leave, then paused. And Sung-hoon? If she makes you weak, I will remove her myself. Blood or not, she won't. See that she doesn't. The bodyguards filed out after Jinwoo, leaving Sung-hoon and Tammy alone in the corridor. Tommy's legs nearly gave out. Sung-hoon caught her, of course he did, and pulled her against his chest. You just negotiated with a mafia boss, he murmured against her hair. I just committed to a life I don't understand. Regret it already? She pulled back to meet his eyes. Ask me in 10 years. His smile was real this time, rare, devastating, human. Deal. She heals the world his money destroyed to protect. Montego Bay. Jamaica, present day. The humanitarian clinic sat 3 blocks from the beach, its walls painted turquoise and coral, Caribbean colors that announced life instead of apologizing for it. A hand-painted sign above the entrance read, Blackwell Refuge, for airport workers, debt survivors, and anyone carrying weight alone. Dr. Tammy Blackwell Ryu stepped out of the air-conditioned interior into Jamaica's humid embrace, smiling at the line of people waiting for afternoon walk-in hours. Former cleaning staff, baggage handlers, security personnel, the invisible labor force that kept airports functioning while remaining largely unseen. Her clinic saw them. Dr. Tammy. A woman waved from the queue. My daughter wants to apply for your nursing scholarship. Have her come by tomorrow. Tammy's smile widened. I'll personally review her application. 6 years since gate 47. 6 years since a panicked stumble had crashed her into destiny wearing an expensive suit. Her phone buzzed. A text in Korean, then English. Running 20 minutes late. Uncle Jinwoo sent flowers for the anniversary. Apparently even he's capable of sentiment. S.H. Tammy laughed, typing back. Tell him the orchids are beautiful and I haven't embarrassed the family lately. Drive safe. Love you. T. She'd graduated with her nursing degree in 3 years accelerated program funded by what official paperwork listed as private Korean donor. She'd specialized in trauma counseling and emergency medicine, skills that translated across cultures and communities. The clinic had opened 2 years ago, quietly backed by funds that flowed through so many shell corporations that even forensic accountants couldn't trace them back to Seoul. But Tommy knew. Every scholarship, every free medical service, every debt relief program funded by the same syndicate money that had once threatened her cousin, washed clean through humanitarian work that actually saved lives instead of just laundering reputation. Sung-hoon had been right. Power was only worth having if you built something with it. Interior clinic. Late afternoon. Tommy finished with her last patient and found Sung-hoon waiting in her office, leaning against her desk with that posture that still made her breath catch. Expensive suit, impeccable tailoring, scar through his eyebrow that she'd traced with her fingers 1,000 times. But his eyes were softer now. Less ice, more depth. Dr. Blackwell Ryu, he said formally. Mr. Ryu, she replied, matching his tone. Then they both smiled, private joke, shared history. 6 years of building something that shouldn't exist. He pulled her close, kissing her forehead in that gesture that always felt like homecoming. Clinic looks good. You've helped 43 people this week. You're keeping count? I always keep count. His arms tightened. Uncle Jinwoo asked about expansion. Thinks you should open a second location in Kingston. What do you think? I think you should do whatever makes you happy. He pulled back to meet her eyes. As long as happy includes me. Tommy laughed. Still possessive after 6 years? Always. No hesitation. You're mine, remember? I claimed you at gate 47. And I claimed you back. Best decision you ever made. Second best, she corrected. The first was slapping you. Sung-hoon's rare, genuine laugh filled her office, the sound that still surprised her with its warmth. Accidentally. Sure, accidentally. Tommy rested her head against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. Steady, strong, alive. 6 years ago, she'd been a cleaning woman stumbling through an airport, invisible and exhausted. Now she was Dr. Tammy Blackwell Ryu, founder of a humanitarian clinic that saved lives, strategic partner to a man whose world dealt in death, but built her empire of healing anyway. Do you regret it? Sung-hoon asked quietly. This life? Tammy looked up at him at the face that had caught her when she fell. The hands that had protected her through succession wars and rival violence. The man who'd learned to be human again because she'd refused to let him stay frozen. Not for a second. 6 years earlier, a frightened woman had crashed into destiny and struck it across the face. You're going nowhere, he'd said. Not a threat. A promise. Present clinic rooftop. Sunset. They stood on the clinic's rooftop as the sun painted Kingston Bay in gold and crimson, Tammy's hand in Sung-hoon's, watching the city that had raised her from poverty and now witnessed her legacy. Your mother would be proud, Tammy said quietly. Sung-hoon was silent for a moment. She would have loved you. Think so. I know so. He kissed her temple. She would have seen what I see, someone who refuses to let the world make her small. Someone who survives and builds instead of just enduring. Below them, the clinic's lights flickered on. Tomorrow more people would come seeking help. More lives would be changed. More weight would be lifted. Life built from death money. Healing grown from violence. Love cultivated in soil that shouldn't sustain it. We did something impossible, Tommy whispered. We did something necessary. Sung-hoon turned her to face him. You taught me that power without purpose is just noise. That protecting something means letting it grow, not controlling it. And you taught me that being seen doesn't make you weak. No. His forehead touched hers. Being seen makes you dangerous. They kissed as the sun set over Jamaica, over the clinic, over the life they'd built, over the collision that had started at gate 47 and rippled into revolution. Somewhere in Seoul, in a private office overlooking the city, Ryu Jinwoo reviewed quarterly reports showing a humanitarian clinic in Jamaica that had saved 43 lives this week alone. He marked it with a single note in the margins. Strategic asset. Continue funding. And perhaps, in the privacy where no one could witness sentiment, she makes him human. That is worth protecting. Years later, when people asked Dr. Tammy Blackwell Ryu how she'd built Blackwell Refuge from nothing, she'd smile and say, I stumbled into the right person at the right time. Those who knew the full story understood. She hadn't stumbled. She'd collided. With a man whose face she'd accidentally slapped, who'd refused to let the accident end there, who'd looked at a cleaning woman in a red uniform and seen a queen refusing to bow. And together, they'd built an empire where life and death, healing and power, Jamaica and Korea merged into something that shouldn't exist but did anyway. Love that survived the war. And that's where we leave Tommy and Sung-hoon 6 years after a slap at gate 47 changed everything. If this story grabbed you, hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments. Would you take the risk Tommy did? Would you stay or run? My friend said nobody finishes 9-chapter romance stories on YouTube. You just proved her wrong. Now click the next video on your screen. I've got another forbidden love story queued up that's just as addictive. Trust me, you won't regret it. See you in the next story. And remember, sometimes the best things in life start with accidents that refuse to stay accidental.